Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at those temperatures across the region. You see a little bit of variety here toward different parts of the area. We do have some cool air trying to come back in toward the picture, but I know toward like the Stark area where I'm at here, east of Stark on my thermometer, we're sitting at 57 degrees, a little bit warmer toward Keystone and that airport region there, 61, 64 Gainesville, as we're looking in toward those overnight hours. With those temperature readings there around 2 o'clock in the morning. As you see here toward Albany, they're down to 49 in Dougherty County. You see all the way 45 degrees there in Blakely in Early County, Georgia. So kind of intriguing to look at the contrast here as a sign of some cool air to come. I know. Just kind of interesting, watching our local weather. I'm just going to give you a different view real quick here. Let me take off the temperatures. And I'll keep the radar on it only so continental U.S. radar, but I'm going to show you a different view than we normally show here. It's kind of intriguing to see, maybe some lightning out toward areas east of the southeast and then also toward the southwest a little bit, and you even see a risk of some severe weather starting to come into play toward parts of the center of the country later on this Wednesday, but not too big of a deal yet. A low risk of some wind and then some hail as we get a little bit further up toward the north here. Some damage and wind and hail. Marginal risk, but it's a sign of things to come. The threat expected to go up toward the center of the country toward the Easter weekend here. And we may have to turn the logo back red again. It's too early to say for sure, though, but could have multiple days of some type of risk. I'm not sure if it's going to be a tornado outbreak type situation or not yet, but some type of severe weather definitely possible in the center of the country for several days, starting, around late week here, Thursday, Friday, and going all the way through Easter here at least. So gonna have to watch out toward the Midwest here in that vicinity. But it's kind of always intriguing to watch things here with the meteorology. I know. Let me go ahead and you can kind of see the wind direction here and the like, and again that cooler air trying to come in toward the picture here as we're looking at things. I know toward Central Florida, there's some concern about the fire danger here as we're looking ahead. Because it's going to be so dry. Not as much up north. There is a little bit of one, but not as much at least. But we're going to keep our eyes peeled out, of course, in that situation. But I know the humidity values there, just the overall fire weather conditions, a bigger concern down there as we look ahead toward that Wednesday. But let's go ahead and see these tornado safety tips here. We always like to say these because we're going to be watching the center of the country toward late weekend of the weekend, not necessarily today, but as we get toward, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the later you get in toward, toward the holiday weekend, unfortunately, the Easter weekend, we're going to have to pay attention. Again, not turning the logo ready quite yet. We're not confident it's going to be a big national story, for certain yet, but very well may have to turn that logo red as we look ahead later in toward the week. I know we'll be back late Thursday with another formal update, and we'll also we'll be watching just to see, how things progress in the overall pattern. I know as we're kind of tracking things here in toward the weather center, it's going to be a situation where we shouldn't have anything too crazy locally, at least over the next week or so. So pretty calm around here. Again, that is a little bit of a concern with the fire danger in some regard, but you can see all that rain toward Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas here. As we look ahead, I know you can go to clutter.com/radar for an interactive look at things when we're, on the air or not on the air, depending on what you want to look at here. As we're tracking things here in the weather center, but you can see like Springfield, Missouri, and Jefferson City there, and going down to Arkansas, it's Fayetteville area, and then eastern Oklahoma, Tulsa. Some of those areas even getting closer to Oklahoma City. That's where we're going to have more rain, and not exactly how the severe threat will, not exactly the same in that the severe threat maybe it won't overlap completely, but it's a general idea that, that area is going to be a little bit more impacted by storminess here. As we're tracking things, in other words, dark, you see not so much in the forecast, maybe a little bit around. You see some light green indicating small amounts of rain, dark green toward southwest Georgia, so quarter inch on average over the next week, but, a lot of Florida, not really much at all, so the areas that have gotten some rain recently, I know we got rain here on Friday. That was helpful. I know the hail wasn't good for some, areas, the ones that got it, of course. Other areas didn't really get the hail too much more than like pea size. But some areas got golf ball or even closer to about 2 inches in diameter type of hail toward Alachua County and Gainesville on Friday. That's something That's just not good to deal with. Can cause some damage, dents in cars and the like. Bust out skylights, in a home there or something to that effect. But as we go ahead and look at the viewing circle here, you can see we're always on top of things for the 62 counties. This is our area. We're always on for any tornado warning storms. We were on with that one in Taylor County on Friday, but the biggest concern Friday ended up being the hail there toward Alachua County. Had lesser sized hail toward Duval County, but Alachua County, that was a big story. That was one of the worst hailstorms they've had in a while down there, to be quite honest. And as you look at Leon County with all those tornadoes last Monday, but looking over there with those debris signatures and the like, I know, tonight FSU baseball is celebrating a tremendous window against USF. The Bulls from Tampa lost 19-0 in a short and 7-inning game because it was just so out of reach there, and the Seminoles got the job done. 19-0. So FSU, we were just talking about a week ago, they were really struggling with injuries and the like here, and had lost a handful of games in a row, and including against Florida last week, and now FSU's turning on. Florida's doing better here. They run rule Stetson tonight. I believe it was 14-4 when I looked at it earlier on, something to that effect. I was just looking that up here for viewers at home. I know I'm a Seminole fan, and graduate of FSU, but I just want to make sure we at least get that in because Florida is playing better, and they do deserve credit here in terms of baseball. They're 25-14 now, and of course their basketball team just absolutely tremendous what they did last week to win that title. But yeah, the baseball team now is one. It looks like for Florida 5 in a row. FSU, I guess it'd be 4 in a row now. So, FSU is probably a little more impressive. I know they lost to Florida last week, but they went to Virginia Tech and won 3 in a row. That was something against the top 25 opponent. I think they were the Hokies. So, and South Florida's not bad either. So, to win 19-0, I mean, that is about as good as it gets there for the Seminoles as we're looking at things in baseball. A midweek regular season game. Of course, a lot higher goals, left to go. Hopefully, FSU baseball, there's a long way to go. It's a long season, 2 months away. But, Florida basketball won the title. I'm a Seminole, but send them, congratulations. I mean, what great performances there by the Gators. You got to give them credit there as we're looking at things. And, I mean, Walter Clayton Jr., and of course, you had Thomas Houck and Micah Hanlock, and I mean, those guys, performing so well for the Gators there. But as we're looking at things, as we're tracking, and now hopefully the FSU baseball team can, get kind of on a roll like that and end up winning that national title for the first time here in 2025. And softball, FSU softball, maybe we can double it up, win baseball and softball. Wouldn't that be great? It'd be the second ever softball title for the Seminoles. The Gators are doing one softball too, though. And they won, I believe, 2 in their history. So they'll be trying for a third as we're looking at things here. That's a Alachua County's team. The Gators and some of the other counties in the region, and then Leon County and other counties in the region. The team, of course, is Seminoles. As we go ahead and look at things here, that planning forecast now, you can see 5% chance of rain on that Wednesday. Clear pretty much, when I have 5%, it's almost clear. I mean, we're not too concerned overall. Don't get me wrong. 5% is something I'm just kind of putting in here just to cover our bases per se. But, it's a situation here where I'm not really expecting anything in terms of precip. That's, something that's, again, really small chance. Once you have 10%, that's when we're starting to look at something. But 5%, that's the only time really I ever put it. I don't do like the 5, 15, 25, but, other than the 5. So, I mean, it's a very, minuscule chance, but not completely zero. Pretty much zero on Thursday, though. Don't want to say that directly, but that's how it looks here. You see a big temperature contrast on Thursday going from the 40s to the 80s. And then you see that warming trend, though. It's going to get above average here with those lows and the highs coming up here toward Easter. Maybe some rain, but I'm not too concerned locally. 20-30% chance. As you saw, the rainfall forecast wasn't too concerned. Some parts of the area have a better chance than others. I mean, when it's dark, you saw it didn't even have any really in the forecast for the next week. We may get a little bit, quite honestly, but we do need a little bit still. Again, don't want too much for Easter. But getting hot, getting, dry, it concerns me some because we do have some, just especially toward Central Florida more than up here, but there's some fire danger concerns here in the overall pattern. We're lucky when we've gotten the rain, quite honestly, because there was a chance going earlier into the season. There's still a chance for it. It's just mid-April, but there's a chance we could end up even with less rain than we've gotten, and that would have been really consequential here in terms of the wildfire season. But every time we've gotten kind of on the edge, we've gotten the rain, enough to kind of push us through a little bit longer. Hopefully we can get that to happen until, we get in our wet season here. The summertime storms, we have to watch out for lightning, but eventually we'll just get soaked from those and we won't have to worry about fire danger more than likely. Once you start getting into June and July here, the chances, of being a fire situation, the wet patterns to kind of take over for that here. Of course, you have to watch out for tropical systems, possibly. We don't really want those. Sometimes those can be more helpful than others. Most of them aren't helpful, but sometimes you can get a wet tropical system, tropical storm, I'm talking about weaker one or something like that, and give you a bunch of rain that really help, drought conditions. Because we've been kind of, especially toward Orlando, I'm kind of concerned down there because it's been a little bit drier down there based on the overall numbers. I mean, they had Milton last year, but they've been a little bit more dry, and we have to get through May. May could be a little bit more concerning if it stays kind of dry here toward the Sunshine State, especially down there, or maybe even in our southern areas like Flagler and Marion. They have a little more concern down there, so we're going to continue to watch that. I don't want to stress out about that, but we just got to be kind of careful because we don't want to get caught off guard here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here, and then all of a sudden we're in a dire situation. We want to make sure that we're monitoring things here as we're tracking them, as we're just giving you guys the updates here. And I'm just going to check some things here real quick because I want to look at our drought forecast. The above average temperatures, Central Florida, even South Florida, that's a concern. There's a little bit of risk in Georgia and our far northern Georgia, South Georgia counties too. And I know, after Helene, there was some wind damage up there. That could be a little bit of concern, but we did have a wildfire going back, that actually caused some big damage there going back a few months, I think it was, even, some structures there being impacted by that, if I recall. It kind of happened and then wasn't right, known until it already had occurred there in our far northern fringe of the area. But, north Central Florida, South Florida, that's where we can have some problems here if we start getting drier and drier. The next week is looking very dry, so let's just hope we get some more moisture in there. Not as much of a concern up here in, our area, but we still have to be paying attention if we get a, multiple week stretch without rain. That could be a bigger concern here. I know as we're tracking things, as we're looking at the situation. So again, that's probably more of a Central and South Florida thing, though. Orlando, even Miami down there in that vicinity, Fort Myers, kind of Lakeland, that general type of a region. But again, there's your forecast. You see Easter Sunday there, looking pretty nice, for Easter egg hunts and the like. Maybe some passing showers here. Maybe later on, could have something in those western counties, something like that, try to come in. We'll watch, of course. Never thunderworks go indoors, but we're not overly concerned here locally. If we turn the logo red here late Thursday, we very well could, but it's not going to be for anything local here. That this gets sit there next Tuesday. It's not going to be anything local, that we're turning the logo red for the Easter weekend. So don't, stress out about that. The only reason we'd be turning it red, it would be for the national severe threat. As we're looking there, as we're tracking the situation nationally there with convective activities. And again, we will be watching toward Central and South Florida just in case, because Weather Service Melbourne's been a little bit, up there with some of their concerns for, some fire threats. There have been some areas that have, been concerns at times. So we'll pay attention there. We don't cover Melbourne counties, unless it's a real big national story, of course, or, something really starts to develop. That's not part of our 62 county region. But as we look back here, let's go ahead and put this in the winter mode, because look at that. There is some wintry precipitation there you know, northern New York State. It's not that heavy. They had quite a bit up in those areas in the Northeast the other day, but that's not really heavy. But it's there. I mean, you know, turning that into winter mode in mid-April. I mean, you know, Ithaca, New York there, Binghamton, Elmira, Rochester, Buffalo, Jamestown, all getting into it tonight. Watertown's right on the edge there, so interesting to see that. Even in Pennsylvania, some snow mixing in with the rain toward Johnstown, you know, and the like there. You see some of these areas in northwest Pennsylvania too. I mean, even West Virginia, there may be a little bit of snow mixing, and they just had some severe weather back on Monday. Nasty storm there moving to the Charleston, West Virginia area with you know, quite a bit of hail being produced there on that Monday. So, of course, we had the hail here on that Friday. I mean, you don't really look at, you know, areas, I mean, like Gainesville, Florida, or Charleston, West Virginia for prolific hail production, but kind of interesting pattern there. But you also see some fog. The forecast didn't necessarily show a whole bunch of that when I was looking at the models. I didn't put the safety tips in, but we do have a little bit of that forming there around Perry and around Keystone Airport. Down on 8th of a mile at Keystone Airport. So I think I'm going to put those in real quick. I'll just run this into our system momentarily, because that's enough. It may not be something that's just, you know, widespread and long lasting, but I mean, the 8th of a mile is actually very, very low for anybody in our area, much less right here in our own backyard. 56 degrees to start. That may be, you know, the story may have some fog outside where we're at even. That would be keeping that temperature up a little bit compared to some of the other spots here. I mean, I know we're in a rural spot, but you'd think we'd be down a little bit cooler than that, even in this type of pattern. You know, a tad bit cooler. We're always a little bit cooler in a pattern kind of like this, you know, but it's not really cold out there. And probably some fog playing a role in that as we're looking at things. And I can't pull up our camera really with, you know, on the screen. It doesn't have night vision, but let me go ahead and kind of just, I'll pull these safety tips in real quick into our source, and you can just see, you know, not necessarily a dense fog advisory is going to get issued, but we have the threat here of some fog in some isolated areas. So just slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. And then make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible to other vehicles by using your low beam headlights, and leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. So just important stuff to keep in mind here. I thought I'd throw that on here since we were getting that a little bit in a couple of the different backyards here. Again, you know, Perry getting it, Keystone Heights area getting it. I know, as we're kind of looking at things, I think it's just kind of, you know, important to note here in toward the Weather Center. So again, I'm going to keep watching things. I'm going to keep tracking them here in the Weather Center. I'll be back with another update late Thursday unless we need to pop back in earlier for some reason for a national storyline. I know, you know, as we're just kind of watching things, as we're tracking them here. I know Gainesville got up to 84 on that Tuesday with the high, 86 Jacksonville, 85 Tallahassee. Albany only to 78 there on their center according to their climate report. I think they had some center problems as I recall the other day, but up there in Dougherty County area. But again, that's pretty much wrap it up here. Facebook Casey Cloud WX Cloud Weather, Twitter /X at Cloud Casey, YouTube at Cloud Weather, Twitch Cloud Weather, Clutter.com with all the different resources. I know, you know, that FSU baseball series against UVA starts Thursday night on the ACC network. Carl Ravage will be calling that, you know, one there for Thursday, and the game on Friday on ESPN2, I believe it is. And I think it's on just ACC Network Extra for Saturday, but that is going to be something where, you know, the baseball team really looking to get another key series win as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here toward Dick Howser Stadium and Mike Martin Field in Tallahassee. As we're tracking the situation, I know it's going to be something where the weather's going to be pretty good out there, and hopefully Max Williams and you know, all those key guys on the team will be hitting home runs as we're looking ahead there in that timeline. I mean, you have Miles Bailey, of course, and I know some guys are out with injury. I'd start naming some more guys, but you know, the Noles have had some injuries. as we're looking at things. That pitching, Jamie Arnold there. He'll be so important for the Noles as we look ahead toward that series there that starts on Thursday this week. Thursday night instead of Friday night, as we do have the Easter weekend coming on up. Easter Sunday there. So Thursday, ACC Network, I believe it is. You guys can double check. Friday night, ESPN2, and Saturday is ACC Network Extra. So just kind of important to watch there. As we're looking at things in toward, the weather being nice for that. Hopefully a lot of home runs. Hopefully great pitching by the Noles as well. That's so critical, and the depth of the pitching there as well in that series against the Cavaliers that are coming down from Charlottesville, Virginia, to take on the Noles in college baseball in the ACC. Critical weekend series there. So that'll do it. Have a great night. We'll be back late Thursday with another update. Stay safe. I know these temperatures going to be cooling off some as we look ahead, but then you saw how quickly they just warm up. Let me see if there's any questions or comments as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here tonight. I don't see anything, but again, just thanks so much for tuning in.